So in this video, we'll take up the second logarithm homework sheet. To do this sheet, it's really helpful if you knew all your powers. Now we're not going to do bases of really large numbers, so I would argue most of the numbers for the base will range from 2 to 12. And sometimes they're like rational numbers, so you just have to be creative about it. Okay. I'll just go over the trickier ones, and if you are allowed to use a calculator on the test, there is a way to evaluate these logarithms if you don't know your powers, but we're going to cover that later. But for now, just really try to remember your powers because they do come in handy to do lots of different questions, so you don't have to constantly refer to your calculator for help. So I would argue for part A, let's see. Yeah, A through F, nothing really interesting. I just used my knowledge of my powers that I've memorized. One thing to note is that log base 6 of 1 is equal to 0. In fact, log base of anything, log base, let's say 7 of 1, is still going to be 0. As long as the base is not 1 and it's greater than 0, then the logarithm will be equal to 0. And this is, if you think back to it, it makes sense because of your zero exponent law. So yeah, that's something handy to remember. Let's see, so G, H, I, J, K, L. Okay, G through K is once again pretty straightforward. You just have to memorize your powers. Now L, you have to be a little creative. Okay, 1 over 9 raised to the power of what will give you 27. So hopefully you know that because you want to get 27 from 1 over 9, a base of 1 over 9, to get to 27, you want the exponent to be negative. And you want to be 3 over 2 because you want to square root the 9 and then cube it. Square root the 9 and cube it. So it would really help if you had your knowledge of rational exponents here. And that's something you learn in grade 11. Okay, for M, I helped myself by expressing 0.125 as a fraction. So yeah, P, Q, R, just know your rational exponents. So I took 4, how do I get to 128? So you have to square root it and raise it to the power of 7. Because square root of 4 is 2, and 2 to the power of 7 is 128. And make it the exponent negative because you don't want 128, you want 1 over 128. For 9 to get to 243, you want to square root the 9 to get 3, and then raise that to the power of 5. So that's why it's 5 over 2. So your rational exponents really come in handy here. Okay, STU, not much to say. This one, since your base is square root of 3, you actually want the power to be 10 because power of a power means multiply exponents, and 3 to the power of 5 is 243, so that means square root of 3 raised to the power of 10 will be 243. Not much to say for T and U. Okay, so for part B, when I solve for A, I get x to be plus minus 3. Now I have to reject the negative 3 because if you look at part B, A, x is the base of the logarithm. We cannot allow the base of the logarithm to be negative 3. So the answer is just positive 3. And I did that for part C as well. It's the base of the logarithm. It must be positive. Let's see. So for some of these questions, I was solving for the argument. And if I was solving for the argument, let's say, for example, E, I was solving for the argument, I would just convert it to exponential form, and I can easily solve for the argument. Okay, so basically, sometimes well, a lot of the times actually, I change it to exponential form, and then I just did the correct operation to solve for x. For J, K, and L, these were just like part A questions. I was just essentially I'm just evaluating the logarithm. Oh, J, K, L, M, and N. Yep, I'm just evaluating the logarithm, nothing fancy. So for O, I'm solving for the base of the logarithm. For P, I'm solving for argument, so exponential form, solving for the base. So when solve for the base, you have to change it to exponential form, and then like for Q, I have to cube root both sides. For O, I have to square root both sides. Or sorry, I have to square both sides for O. Okay, so take your time, look through the answers, and if you have any questions, you can leave a comment.